I'm from Vietnam. Hello, everyone. My nickname is Peter, over 40 years old. Today, I will talk about topic, why do so many elderly Vietnamese still work? Whenever I walk through local markets in Vietnam, there is one thing that always catches my attention. The number of elderly people who are still working every day. Some sell vegetables, some sell fish, some sell fruit. Others have nothing more than an old bicycle and a few small items to sell. In many developed countries, people at this age have already retired. But in Vietnam, this seems completely normal. You can see them in almost every market, almost every neighborhood, and almost every day. It makes me wonder, why do so many elderly Vietnamese people continue to work? Is it because they need the money? Is their pension not enough? Or is there something else behind it? To be honest, I used to think the answer was simple. I thought they worked because they had no choice. But the more I observe everyday life around me, the more I realize the story may be much more complicated. Vietnam is aging rapidly. According to the United Nations, Vietnam is among the countries experiencing one of the fastest population aging processes in the world. The number of elderly people continues to grow, yet I still see many of them working long after reaching retirement age. So today, I want to understand why, not through statistics alone, but through what I see in everyday life here in Vietnam. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that elderly people are everywhere in everyday life in Vietnam, especially in traditional markets. They sell vegetables, they sell fish, they sell flowers, they sell breakfast food. Some bring only a few bundles of vegetables from their own garden. Others have been sitting in the same corner of the market for years. Whenever I walk through places like this, I often wonder what time they started their day and how much money they earn after spending hours here. What's interesting is that this isn't something you see in just one market or in just one city. I've seen the same thing in many different places across Vietnam. Elderly people continue working, continue selling, continue earning whatever income they can, even at an age when many people would already be retired. In many ways, this reflects a larger change happening in Vietnam. Life expectancy has increased significantly over the past few decades. More and more people are living into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. But living longer doesn't necessarily mean people can stop working. When I look at elderly people in markets like these, I think the question is no longer, why are they still working? The question is, how could they afford to stop? And to understand that, we need to look at something many foreigners don't know about Vietnam. When I was younger, I assumed that everyone would receive a pension after retirement. But as I grew older, I realized that isn't always the case. In Vietnam, pensions are generally tied to long-term participation in the social insurance system, which means not everyone will receive one later in life. especially people who spent most of their lives working in the informal economy. Street vendors, small traders, farmers, seasonal workers. Many of them worked hard for decades, but not all of them were part of the social insurance system. As they get older, their options become increasingly limited. I think this is something many foreigners may find surprising, because when people look at Vietnam today, they often see modern buildings, new infrastructure, and a rapidly growing economy. But alongside that growth are millions of workers who spent most of their lives in small-scale jobs. Jobs that generated daily income, not necessarily long-term security. And perhaps that's one reason why I still see so many elderly people working in local markets. Not because they're trying to get rich, not because they're building a career, but because life continues, and they still need some form of income to support themselves. However, money may not be the whole story. But after spending time observing everyday life, I realized that money may not be the only answer. Because I've also met elderly people who are not truly struggling to survive. Their children support them. Their families care about them. They are not working simply to put food on the table. And yet, they still work. Why? I think part of the answer lies in how many older Vietnamese people view work itself. For many of the older generation, work is more than a way to earn money. It is part of life. They are used to waking up early, used to staying busy, used to seeing people every day, used to feeling useful. If they suddenly stay home all day, some find it surprisingly difficult. I've heard many elderly people say, staying at home is more tiring than working. Of course, every situation is different. But when I see elderly women selling vegetables in local markets or elderly men riding bicycles to work every morning, I don't think all of them are there because of money alone. Sometimes, work is also a way to maintain independence, to avoid asking their children for money, to avoid depending entirely on someone else. Even earning a small amount each day can provide a sense of security and dignity. Perhaps that's why many elderly people continue working even at an advanced age. Not always because they have to, but because they are not yet ready to let go of the rhythm of life they've followed for decades. When I see elderly people still working every day, I often find myself wondering about something else. Will our generation be any different? Vietnam is changing rapidly. More young people have stable jobs. More people participate in social insurance. More people have access to education than their parents and grandparents ever did. But at the same time, the cost of living continues to rise. Housing, raising children, healthcare, everything is becoming more expensive. That's why I don't think this is only a story about the elderly people sitting in local markets today. It's also a story about our own future. Because one day, all of us will grow old. And eventually, we may ask ourselves the same question. What kind of life do we want when we are no longer young? Perhaps not everyone I saw today wanted to keep working into their 70s, or 80s. But I also don't think all of them regret it. When I look at them, I see persistence. I see responsibility. And I see a generation that spent most of their lives working, supporting their families, and continuing to move forward even as they grew older. The next time I walk through a market in Vietnam, I probably won't just see someone selling a few bundles of vegetables. I'll see a lifetime behind that person. And perhaps that's the part worth remembering. Take this barber, for example. He makes about $10 a day. It's not a lot, but it's enough for him to get by without depending on his children. After all, if you don't have a pension, having your own income can mean a lot. It gives you a sense of independence and helps avoid becoming a burden on your family. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective and see what others think as well. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps and supports what I do here. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. On the other hand, not all elderly people continue working in traditional jobs. Many choose a different role within the family. They take care of their grandchildren, pick them up from school, or help their children with childcare. In return, their sons and daughters can focus more on work and earning a living. This often creates a situation where the younger generation is better able to support their parents financially as well. But I don't think this is only about money. In Vietnam, many grandparents genuinely enjoy spending time with their grandchildren. For them, it can be one of the greatest joys of old age.